World Hoppers, this is not a drill. All right, World Hoppers, this is not a drill. This is legitimately one of the biggest Cosmere developments we've ever had. And for once, this isn't rumors or somebody optioned something that we'll never hear about again. This is real movement with a real studio and with Brandon Sanderson directly involved in a way that is honestly unprecedented. Apple TV has officially made a deal for the Cosmere, with Mistborn planned as a trilogy of movies, Stormlight planned as a TV series, and potentially many more beyond that. And the reason this feels different from previous adaptation conversations is because Brandon isn't just attached in name, he is structurally part of how this is being built. Before I get into my own thoughts, timelines, and speculation, I want to start by reading Brandon's entire Reddit post word by word because it sets the tone for everything that follows and clears up a lot of misconceptions right away. So this is Brandon's post exactly as written. Hey all, news has broken. Rather than post on all the threads, I figured I would do a new post here with some info and thoughts. In May, I flew to Hollywood to start looking for a new partner on the Cosmere. This is something I've done before, but this time it was different. I've been off the market for many years, working with Epic and my friends there. That means this was the first time being in Hollywood with my Cosmere rights since, 2016. This time I got to meet the real decision makers, not just producers or low-level executives, and this led to some really tough choices. I got the red carpet treatment and liked everyone I met. The decision to pick Apple was due to two factors. First, the level of approvals and control. Apple wants to be a true partner with me, and they feel like they really get what I want to do. Second, their track record. Apple does fewer things but with higher quality than some other studios. I find virtually everything of theirs I watch is excellent and creator driven. Join me for a live stream on Friday, probably 6 p.m. Mountain. I'll talk more then, but I will be writing the Mistborn screenplay myself over the next 5 months as my full-time work. Goal is for a theatrical Mistborn, then Stormlight show after. Focus on doing it carefully and right. I promise not to get too distracted to do books. However, if I want this done right, I need to give some real attention and heart to it now. There is a lot packed into that post, and it already explains why this feels fundamentally different from past Cosmere adaptation news. First, the timeline context matters. Brandon says this is the first time he's been in Hollywood with his Cosmere rights since around 2016. And that alone tells you this wasn't sudden. It's been dormant for years and finally reopened. Second, he makes an important distinction. This time he was meeting actual decision makers, not just producers or lower level executives, and that is huge. That means these were real negotiations, not exploratory conversations. He also says something subtle but important. He had choices. He liked the people he met. Apple wasn't the only option. Apple was the option that aligned best for what he wants the Cosmere to be. Now, when he talks about approvals and control, I want to be very clear of what that realistically means. Brandon does not have absolutely creative control. I've seen that being tossed around a lot. He's not the director. He's not the sole authority, but he is a producer on these projects, and that matters. Being a producer means he has a real voice in discussions about tone, scope, long-term planning, and likely even budget-level decisions, especially since this is his IP. It also strongly suggests that this deal wasn't about maximizing upfront money. It's very possible Brandon accepted less upfront or structured the deal differently to ensure meaningful involvement. He's not the only voice in the room, and that's good, but the key difference is that he's in the room. The second reason he gives for choosing Apple is their track record. Apple TV Plus is generally well known for having fewer projects, but prioritizing quality, patience, and creator-driven work. And that's exactly what projects like Mistborn and Stormlight need. Stormlight as a show, for example, cannot be rushed. It cannot be cheap. If you rush Stormlight, it becomes another Wheel of Time sort of disaster. Mistborn too. Now, the biggest concrete deal. Brandon is writing the Mistborn screenplay himself over the next 5 months, full time. And that's enormous. That's not consulting, that's not notes, that's Brandon directly shaping how Mistborn will come across as a film. And 5 months is a long time for Brandon Sanderson, which tells me that this is not just a light rewrite, this is foundational work. Now, let's talk timelines because this is where a lot of people are worried, possibly unnecessarily. Brandon has already published very clear timelines for the upcoming Cosmere books. When these timelines first came out, my personal reaction was actually like, wow, this sort of seems slow for Brandon. And I think that's the key insight. At the time, I assumed that that extra room was padding for secret projects, which is totally reasonable given his history. But now looking at this Apple deal, I think it's very clear he's also left some intentional space for exactly this kind of thing. In other words, those timelines weren't optimistic, they were realistic. And Brandon has already finished the first draft of the first Ghostbloods book, and after he finishes the Ghostblood trilogy, he'll likely move on to Stormlight as the next entry that's planned far enough out that this 5-month screenplay sprint and some other things he'll be doing will probably fit within his schedule, not on top of it. So I generally don't think there's much reason to worry that Ghostbloods will be delayed or that Stormlight's going to be even longer beyond what he already told us. This adaptation work looks like it was already accounted for. Now, on timelines for the adaptations themselves, I think we should be realistic. Even with Brandon writing full-time for 5 months, there's still development, revisions, attaching a director, casting, budgeting, effects planning. Best case scenario, filming starts around 2027, maybe even 2028, with the release after that. Stormlight, being bigger and more complex, likely follows later, maybe parallel development, but probably a later release. That's not pessimism, that's just how big projects like this work when you're trying to do them right. Now, I want to end with a thought that I don't think everybody's going to agree with, but I want to say it anyway. If the Cosmere truly is going to become a massive multimedia franchise, I don't think there's any realistic way Brandon can personally write everything he wants to explore in this universe. I think, of course, he's going to have time to finish Stormlight and the Mistborn eras and Dragonsteel and some of these other projects, but Brandon Sanderson has so many ideas and stories he would like to write. I don't think he's going to be able to get to them all as he gets more and more sucked in to what's going on screen. So personally, I would love to see Brandon hand over some more of these stories to other authors that he's working with directly or that work under him. I know he is already working with a few, and we already have proof that co-authored Cosmere stories can work. We've seen it in the recent mini-book release. Stories like King Lopen and Elsecaller were written by other authors under Brandon's guidance. Now, are they 100% identical and as good as Brandon's solo work? No, but they're pretty close, and more importantly, they're canon, coherent, and clearly guided by Brandon's vision. Because what I love most about the Cosmere isn't just, Brandon's writing or his sentence-level prose. It's the structure, it's the secrets, it's the interconnected design. If expanding collaboration means we get more meaningful Cosmere stories in our lifetime, especially about side worlds, secondary characters, or unexplored planets, I'm 100% open to that. Obviously, stories like Mistborn or Stormlight I would want to have finished by Brandon, but the other stories, the ones he talks about all of the time that he would love to write but never has the time to get to, I would love them still to be told at some point, even if it's not by him, as long as it's under his guidance. Let me know what you think in the comments. Am I wrong about that? Do you disagree or agree? What do you think about this Apple deal? Are you excited about a potential Mistborn movie or series of movies, about a television show covering Stormlight? How many years do you think it'll take to cover the Stormlight series if he wants to cover all 10 books? I have no idea. I'm curious your thoughts. As always, thanks for being here with Kolos Learns to Read. I appreciate you being here, and I'll see you next time.